You say in Daniel 2:1, and your translation there at the top is, in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, he dreamed dreams. His spirit was disturbed all the while he slept. It is to our advantage that we learn from Daniel the nature of our makeup, anthropology. Daniel's heart, his conscience, sought not to be defiled, and here the king's spirit is active even though his body was overcome with sleep. There are other phrases throughout Daniel that intimate man's nature. Of course, if God speaks in dreams and visions, man is more than a collection of substance. God speaks not only to the bodily features, eyes, ears, etc., but also to the heart and spirit. Close quote. So the Adventist Church would fundamentally disagree with this view of the nature of man. Can you expound on this a little more and why you think this shows that man has a conscious, immaterial aspect to his nature?
This is another interesting thing that comes out in Daniel. There's a couple of places, in fact, even where the eunuch is saying, a lot of people see that as the king shall decapitate me or shall have my head. I think he's saying there that, what about my head or my conscience? So he's referring anthropologically there. There's another place, it's in Daniel 7:1, where Daniel, much like is having these dreams that we find in 2:1, it's the translation in the year 1, Daniel 7. In year of Belshazzar, king of Babel, Daniel saw a dream and visions in his head upon his bed. When I translated that, I thought, boy, that's not brought out in a lot of translations, but there it is, in his head. Afterwards, he wrote the dreams, and then the phrasing is, a head of words was said. And then he mentions that later on in 7, that it is his spirit that's troubled. And he uses an interesting phrasing here that I'm catching out. I think it's Daniel 7:16, where he uses another interesting phrase. And so my spirit was troubled. Here it is. My spirit was troubled, I, Daniel. And here's the phrase, in the middle of the sheath, that is, the visions of my head alarmed me. Now that, I had to ponder that for a long time. That's, how do you translate this? And of course you go to the great commentators and Hebraists and call up a couple of people. Have you seen this? What's going on here? But that's the translation. I let you know, my spirit was troubled, I, Daniel. So there's your person, I, Daniel. In the middle of the sheath, that is, the visions of my head alarmed me. So it's all right there. So you got spirit, head, and then sheath, which is a sword sheath. So you have a sword that goes inside of a sheath. So what's the sheath? Is that the body and my spirit inside the sheath? That's what he's doing. So very closely assimilating intertwining the idea of man being a singular person, two natures, and they're intertwined with each other. So you have spirit and body that are so intertwined, as a spirit is within a sheath, and you think with your head. So this, anthropology, but you also think with your spirit. So the spirit head going on there. Now, without going into a full blown anthropology or anything like that, I find that it was very interesting, and he uses a few more phrases throughout where he's doing that kind of thing, which for those that are physicalists, this is very difficult to get around, because Daniel is obviously seeing spirit and visions in my head and visions in my spirit. My spirit is like a sheath. It's a sword inside of a sheath. So he's using those kinds of ideas, that man is body, spirit, but spirit is a nature or substance in and of itself that thinks without using a brain it also has thoughts. It also has, so if that makes sense, it's not easy to put it together in an anthropological kind of aspect, but that's what's going on throughout Daniel. Man is body spirit. His spirit can think, his head can think, yes. His spirit can think outside of his head, like a sword inside of a sheath. So this is, if that answers your first one, but the second one is interesting because taking that idea in Daniel 12:13, where Daniel is told that he will die and then rest and then be raised from the dead. And I thought, and there it is. So when Daniel dies, he is at rest, go your way until the end, and then you shall be raised. So it's not that he's extinguished or in some sort of a soul kind of thing. The idea is that he's entering into the rest of the Lord, but his body's dead, but he will rest. So all of these things can be spoken of to Daniel, who's one person, two natures. He will die, he will rest, but he's also alive with the Lord. And then body, spirit, he will be raised again from the dead. So it's all right there. So, and I know that that's not the soul sleep kind of stuff, physicalism that goes on with Seventh-day Adventism, so which I think Daniel would knock that one out of the park there too.
Yeah, they're essentially like anthropological monists.
Yes, right.
That'd be like the technical term. But when I came across this in your book, I've been like meditating on this since I came across it. It's like the one thing that stuck out to me because it's not a topic I've ever picked up on in reading the book of Daniel. Growing up in Adventism, obviously the book of Daniel shoved down your throat, hearing it constantly, not necessarily verse by verse, every single verse through the whole book, but just hearing it a lot. I've read it, on my own, probably 15 times, 20 times. That's not a nugget that I've ever picked up on. And so when the way that you broke that down in your book, I'm like, holy smokes, hold up now. And you mentioned that same analogy in the book. So folks, I definitely recommend checking that out. Again, it's a very digestible sort of commentary through the book, doing the translation. That was kind of a snippet there of kind of the way that it works. You break down the verses there in the copy and then kind of explain exactly what's being said by the language, but in English.
Because we're dealing with this is an old text. So
yeah.
there's old ways of expressing I don't like the word. I like duality. I don't like dualism. I like dual unity.
Yeah.
Man is one person, two substances, both of which are absolutely necessary. One can, one aspect or substance continues on consciously, but that is because it's still even in death, where the body is the spirit is from the body, there is still a connection between the two. And the way I express it is in John, Jesus died, and it says, and they put Jesus in the tomb. So Jesus is in the tomb, but Jesus is at the right hand of the Father. He says this, today I'll be with me in paradise and all this. So where is Jesus? Is he in the tomb, or is his spirit, is he dead, and his spirit, his human spirit, is with the Lord in heaven? Well, both. The answer is both. He's in one person, both places. That's how that works. And when that's understood, when that's seen, then you begin to make sense of what Paul, who's very Jewish, says, absent from the body, present Lord. He's not making that up. That's Jewish. That's in wisdom. You can find it in several other places. First century BC Jewish literature, where they're speaking of going and being with the Lord. Abraham is with the Lord. Why would they call it, Abraham's resting place, or going to be with Abraham? Well, Abraham's alive. Yes, he's dead. He's awaiting resurrection, but he's also alive with the Lord. When you start asking me, as I've been asked on this by Adventists and over the years, well, what's the spirit like? How can you be? I don't have to answer the details of the molecular whatever structure of the spirit. I don't have to do that. I don't know everything about that. I've never died and gone to heaven to give you the types of experiences, but there's people in the Bible that have. So I'm going to use that. And so that's what it's suggesting. Is there a lot of mystery in that? Do I have? Yeah, of course there is. I don't have to answer every, well, what's the Spirit? What does it experience? How? Please, it just, this is what the implications are, and I can draw off of those implications that to be absent from body is present from the Lord, is present with the Lord, but that's not resurrection. That's entering rest. That is not resurrection. That resurrection is bodily resurrection, which the Adventists there would affirm. So we're not alone there. It's
sort of.
There.
Sort of.
Sort of. I'd be interested to hear more of what you have to say on this.
I just did a video on this last week. It uploaded on Monday, so I can link you to that. No, they don't believe that. So 1 Corinthians 15:42 is really the death blow. So that makes it clear that what is sown is then raised. Yeah. So it's the same body, the same body that's lowered down is raised. They don't believe that. They believe that there'll be a completely new body of new particles made in a different creation. And from God's memory, he'll remember your personality or character. Those are the two terms they use. And he will then port that into that new body such that you can be recognizable, but it won't be made of the same particles. It's not the same body that was sown in that's then raised.
That, boy, and I get accused of reading into things. How you get all of that? This is what this is what I like about mystery. I can understand and read the text of the idea that's being presented there. Spirit inside of a body, intertwined. There's one person, two nature, clearly two things going on. And I don't have to know all of this to figure out how. This is the question that Paul is, how are the dead going to be? Give me a detailed analysis, Paul. I don't have to do that. And those that usually do, that they go into these great explanations of how this is going to happen. That to me, Paul says, I'm telling you a mystery, brothers. The dead shall arise out of the dust of the earth. Well, what about those eaten by lions 1,000 years, and the lion is eaten by a shark, and then the shark washes up on the ocean, and then by the ocean is carried off and it grows into a tree, and a guy eats the apple off the tree. And like, what do you want me to say on that? God's going to raise the dead. That's what it says.
Right. I got lots of those.
The only response that I have to give. That's it. I don't have to go in. Well, the memory of God is going to bring about it. That's not it. You're inventing at this point. You're just inventing stuff.
That's how their lesser light works, though, because it's Ellen White who said that.
Well, and if you have lesser light,
so that's then what is put in the SDA Bible commentary, which I show in that video. So, folks, if you're more curious about that, you can again go to answeringadventism.com. Just type in resurrection in the search bar, and you'll see the video as well as articles on this with all the links to the quotes, to the SDA Bible commentary, all that good stuff. Yeah. One other thing that you actually said there that I do want to comment on, in our family worship, we're in Luke right now, and this morning, we just so happened, by divine providence, to be in Jesus's discussion with the Sadducees on resurrection.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
And there's something that he says there that's really interesting that I think a lot of people can read over as it pertains to the idea of what you were saying earlier about Abraham being alive.
Yeah.
Jesus caps off, because they're trying to trap him. They're saying, we're going to get this guy on how resurrection can't be possible, because if Moses says that, these things about marital laws, well, then in the resurrection, she's going to have 7 husbands. So how's that going to work? Well, a lot of times people will point there to say, see, Jesus says there won't be giving in marriage in, the life to come, etc. But he caps it off by saying that he's not the God of the dead, but the living, which if you really are reading into what's being said there in response to him is the idea of what you just presented earlier, that Abraham is alive. Jacob is alive.
Yeah.
They're present with the Lord currently, awaiting the reunited conjoining of their resurrected body that will then be glorified. So interesting stuff there. Like I said, I'm really glad that you pulled that out of, I think, Daniel 2.
It really is a simple thing. Why would we talked about this. Well, so why didn't he go to Daniel 12, or why didn't he go to Isaiah 25 or Job 19, or he could have gone to several places? on resurrection, and he goes to well, number one, the Sadducees only accepted the Pentateuch, so he's going to play on their territory. Okay, you accept the Pentateuch, fantastic. And then he goes straight to, this verse of where it's, Elohe Avraham. So this is interesting that he says this, because there the understanding is, I am Abraham's currently.
Mm-hmm.
I am currently Abraham's God, meaning Abraham right now is worshiping me as his God. And when that hits, it's like, that's why the scribe of the Pharisee says, it's a good answer.
Yeah, and it says that they settled.
Yeah,
and it says they settled to not
and
try
they
to
never
trap him
thought,
any
they said, oh,
Yeah.
you might not want to talk to this Dr. Jesus.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Yeah.
And when you see the force of what it is that he's saying there, I wouldn't talk to him again either, because you just nailed me on that one. I can't respond. I am. Yeah, I am. And when he's talking to Moses, Abraham's dead.
Yeah.
How can God be the God of Abraham if Abraham's dead? Well, he's not dead.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, oh man.
Which also speaks to, it would have communicated to them to their erroneous view of resurrection.
He's not raised from the dead either.
No. Yeah. So,
because Jesus speaks of the future resurrection. So here you have Abraham who's alive, that the resurrection of the dead, which everybody would agree, has not happened yet. And so there you go. And Jesus just leaves it right there, and they walk away like,
yeah.
Oh no.
Well, I just love how the last sentence, it says something to the effect of like, and they settled in their hearts to just not try to trap him anymore.
There's no.
Yeah.
We love the Lord Jesus. Blessed be his name forever.
Yes.
There is no response to an effective argument.
Yeah, and he's constantly doing that. In the previous chapter there, the Pharisees are trying to trap him in regards to what does he say? And I can't remember what it is. By what authority do you say these things?
Oh.
And he says, "Oh, hey, I got a question for you, actually."
You're not supposed to answer a question with the question.
Yeah, but he does, and it says that they think to themselves, well, if we say this, he's going to say heaven. But if we say this, they're going to think that the people are going to think we're calling John the Baptist a false prophet, and they're going to stone us. Well, heaven is the correct answer, but they don't want to say that. So It says they just stepped away from trying to trap him. So it's good stuff.